If you know and have the experience, you can read a patient's future from a CBCT like a crystal ball. It can be frightening. You might encounter cancer. Radiologists don't describe any anatomical variants, and anatomical variants can cause one patient to walk away from a car accident unharmed while another dies. But how is that? How is it possible? That doctor rushed and gave the patient Xarelto outside her home that evening after reading my report. First of all, I wanted to express my gratitude to you and the gentleman at Dental Machine. I really enjoy the podcasts you gentlemen produce. Really fascinating. Listen to them closely. I hope I'll be as good as my predecessors. We'll see about that. We'll see. What question did you pose about the history of CBCT? It always starts with mathematicians. Mathematicians set themselves a problem, and they did so in the early 1970s. 3 American mathematicians came up with the concept of creating images from other images that rotated around a single axis. It was a very theoretical question, and only in 1990 was the first cone beam scanner created, not for dentistry at all, but for radiotherapy, to properly position the patient on the radiotherapy table between treatments. It's incredibly important because if the patient is in the same spot, radiotherapy won't work, and it would be a disaster. And only in 2003 was the first cone beam scanner made by Newton from Italy, which looked like a spiral CT where the patient lay on a table and there was a magnificent large crown with just one reality generator and a detector. So it was surprising that suddenly dentists had a CT scanner, which they didn't have before, because this was the first step. In our clinic, it was purchased. The first iCAD cone beam scanner in 2007, and it lasted until 2018. Cool. It lasted a very long time. It lasted so long that the iCAD company vanished, and they were left with a machine. There was no service later on anymore. They couldn't find anyone, so they brought in people from Hong Kong who slept by the machine, and there were some strange situations. 2018, I decided it might be time, and I matured, realizing that I was also a conversation partner for radiologists who trusted me. Because it's all about trust. They trusted that if I took on this field, they wouldn't have to, as they might not be interested in teeth at all. But they gave me the green light to create a separate dental and maxillofacial radiology unit within the same clinic and university hospital. They said, Raphael, you're on the right track, but don't call us. If there are problems, don't call us. You wanted your independence? Then go ahead and have it. But you have to do it, learn on your own, and be your own boss now. And from 2018, we've had a Planmeca machine, which is still in use today. It's already been 7 years. It passes very quickly. And in Belgium, there's no radiological technician for dentists. So the dentist has to perform the examination themselves, which means they need to know a lot more. Everything an electroradiological technician knows. The dentist also needs to know where to press, how to prepare, and which protocol to choose. And this knowledge is given to the dentist through the courses I conduct. 30 hours, 5 days. These courses are enshrined in Belgian law. Every Belgian dentist who wants to purchase a machine, and the same in Luxembourg, must take a 30-hour, 5-day course. At the university, it has to be a professor who teaches. There is no private business, no one with a company to teach you. No, it absolutely has to be a professor. These are European recommendations. That's how they are, not any other way. And then there's an additional exam you need to pass to finally get a document. And only with that document can you go to the Federal Agency for Nuclear Control, which, after checking the papers, grants a federal decree for one person. For instance, in a clinic with 10 dentists, if one completes the course, that doesn't mean he's put an umbrella of protection over all 10. Only he can press that button, and the other 9 are invited to take the course. That's roughly the situation. and we're now in the 7th year, considering whether to continue with this company or switch to another. But as for me, I'm in a hospital where 5,000 people work. It's the largest hospital in Belgium with 1,000 beds. Of course, there are larger hospitals worldwide with even more staff, but it's a system with great inertia and many levels of administration to overcome. So even if I have an idea, it takes many years for that idea to actually become reality. And for something like the first cone beam CT scanner to arrive here, it took me 6.5 years of negotiations with management and the financial directorate. In fact, they didn't believe at all that this was a profitable venture. Think it would be a huge waste of money and merely someone's whim, questioning why it should even be done. The plan was laid out for 3 years. It was supposed to pay off in 3 years or somehow return, but it paid off in 3 months. After 3 months, 127,000 euros had already paid off, and after a year, I could basically have the right to buy as many new machines as I wanted. Of course, it didn't happen that way, so it was a big question mark for the management. And the radiologists, because I left with that machine. The radiologist said, okay, iCAD is dead now. We'll buy ourselves another machine, Newton 120 kVp, and they did. And they do it for ENT specialists. So the radiologists continue to do CBCT, but only for ENT specialists. I say this because ENT specialists worldwide have switched to cone beam tomography, except for Poland. And although Polish radiologists know this, there are specific regulations in Poland and specific reimbursements for CT scans, but from an ALARA perspective, it's the same. So we have a huge problem, and all ENT pathologies can certainly be seen in CBCT. Even if the patient moved and the teeth are messed up, you can still see if there are any mucosal changes in the sinuses. So, in short, that's roughly the situation.
Professor, if I may, let me introduce you to our viewers and listeners. Good day, everyone. My name is Setrin Selega, Dental Machines, Dental Garage. In today's episode, we have a special guest, Professor Raphael Olszewski. He is an outstanding scientist, clinician, scientific writer, expert in the field of cone beam tomography, who develops methods for analyzing CBCT images. Professor, perhaps a few words, though these might not be enough. Could you tell our viewers and listeners a bit about yourself so they can get to know you better? So I'm sure some already know you. Please introduce yourself. Also to our viewers.
A very warm welcome. Thank you very much for the invitation. I really enjoy your program and podcast. My name is, well, I have 2 names, so I'm not sure what to call myself. On one hand, Raphael Olszewski, and on the other, Raphael Olszewski. So as Raphael Olszewski, I am currently a professor at Collegium Medicum in Bydgoszcz, UMK in Torus. We're waiting for the building to be constructed so that the first students can meet me. Maybe next year we'll finally meet. On the other hand, as Raphael Olszewski, I've been living in Belgium for 35 years and haven't lived in Poland for 44 years, so I try to maintain my Polish language. I think I'll manage to keep something. Yeah. And for 35 years, I went through my entire academic path at the rather Catholic UC Louvain in Brussels. I finished dentistry in 1996. I completed medicine in 2001. I completed my specialization in dental surgery in 2006. I finished my doctorate in medical sciences in 2008. I was sent on a doctoral internship to the United States. I was at Harvard in Texas at the Health Medical Center Methodist Hospital and completed a longer journey at the University of California in Los Angeles, where I managed to write a pioneering article on tooth segmentation in cone beam tomography with a colleague from China. Today, you're seeing these beautiful segmentations and advanced segmentations. They began that September day in Los Angeles, where I met my colleague. It was the first time I had seen him. After 5 minutes, we were already friends. After 10 minutes, the methodology was written. After 15 minutes, we were already sitting and manually outlining various teeth. These were teeth that were in the oral cavity at first and later on the cone beam tomography. If they haven't been removed, with truly exceptional orthodontists. And then we had the next CBCT, and gradually everything fell into place. That last internship lasted 6 weeks, but it was incredibly intense because the pioneer of cone beam tomography in the United States, is James Ma to this day, but he is of Chinese descent, holds Canadian citizenship, and doesn't have American citizenship. Nevertheless, he is really well known worldwide, and I wanted to meet him. When I went there, it was a 15,000-kilometer flight. I arrived there and he says, "Raphael, Newton is down. There will be nothing in cone beam tomography." Jesus, I won't go back to the other side tomorrow. What am I going to do here? And that's why Dr. Lee suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and I had plenty of work. And this article is truly a fundamental initial article, which has been cited at least 100 times by now, and everyone who has worked on this topic must cite this article because we were the first. So this is roughly 2008. No, I returned later. I established a laboratory in 2010, then obtained further clinical degrees at the university. In 2018, I became a professor at the Catholic University of Leuven. And in 2019, I founded the journal Nemesis. In the meantime, I managed to be in Poland. I collaborated with the Pomeranian Medical Institute. Greetings to my colleagues from Szczecin in Łódź. Greetings to Professor Kozakiewicz in Rockwall. Greetings to Professor Konopka. I was editor-in-chief of Dental Medical Problems there before the journal received an impact factor. And I was in Krakow as well. My warmest regards to Professor Zapawa, because I had the opportunity, the chance, and the honor to be a visiting professor there between 2016 and 2018. And there, thanks to Professor Zapawa and his conversations, he told me, "Rafał, to be someone in Poland, you need to have a habilitation. Look at your CV, choose a series of articles, and do something good with it." So apart from the articles on 3D cephalometry and so on, I also ventured into low-cost 3D printers and wrote the first articles in the world on the scientific validation of low-cost printers, those that cost 1,000 euros. And I was the first in the world to demonstrate that these printers are just as precise, just as good for clinicians in maxillofacial surgery. I'm not talking about the dental level, I mean maxillofacial surgery, compared to the ones that cost 500,000 euros, and that was simply a breakthrough. And based on such seven works, the faculty board, all these bodies, approached the central committee. When I submitted the papers, I received my habilitation in 4 months. It was really a very short moment, so something like that came. The hall at Collegium Maius was truly beautiful. There were very, very beautiful moments. I did it completely as a hobby, because in Belgium it's useless. So they told me, "Why do you have it?" I said, "Well, I don't know. It might come in handy someday, so we'll see." And it came in handy because now, let's say, is the moment of this new dental school. So the authorities were very pleased to have a habilitated doctor, a free electron, who can, for example, come to Bydgoszcz. Why not? So life is full of surprises. Sometimes you do things not knowing where they will fit, and then life takes a turn. There's some curiosity, an opening, and suddenly it fits. In short,
An incredible story. Professor, when you talk about CBCT, you speak freely. But this is, excuse the expression, as it may sound colloquial, but it's truly genius and immense passion. What you are involved in, what is it about cone beam tomography that fascinates you so much?
well, I think it is. If you know all this, and if you have the knowledge, the experience, you can read from this CBCT like a crystal ball. You're looking into the patient's future. It can be terrifying. You can encounter cancer. There can be various malformations. These could be changes that are small today, but in the future will become rheumatologic diseases, so you need to immediately send them to a rheumatologist. There can be neurological changes that may eventually cause a person to end up in a wheelchair. And you can see that today. The person is not in a wheelchair. Today they feel great. Wonderful. The patient came in and we took an image. There happened to be 2 vertebrae. You don't need 10 vertebrae. The first 2 and the second vertebra unfortunately enters the skull base, and this will cause problems in 10, 20 years that will result in paralysis. And you can know it or not know it. And you can save someone's life in the future or not. The problem is, these are very specific topics, but there is a bigger issue of calcifications in the arteries. You can really see them on implantology images, even less than a centimeter below the mandible. You can see calcifications in the carotid artery at the same level as the bony chin, and it's incredibly important because that patient could soon have a stroke, and you can save their life by administering anticoagulant medication. And we as dentists make this diagnosis. And general practitioners, they don't even wait to do an ultrasound later, not later, a week, or tomorrow. They go straight with the medication. Such cases, the doctor rushed and in the evening gave the patient Exarialto at her home after reading my report. He acted immediately, and the patient didn't have and won't have a stroke anymore. There could be a reverse situation where the patient had a stroke but forgot everything. He takes the medication but didn't tell you and comes in for implants. And what will happen then? It will be a disaster, a complete disaster. And the last moment is me discovering such a situation. And I say, well, we need to call a cardiologist or a doctor. And the doctor says, but he already had a stroke. He just doesn't remember. And he's taking medication. He doesn't remember, doesn't know. At the very last moment, right before the surgical procedure, someone is saved from themselves. It's possible to save them. CBCT is also internal medicine. It's also neurology. It's also orthopedics. It's various elements. It's not just dentistry. Dentistry is a big part, but you could say you can save or not save teeth. But if we are talking about saving or not saving a life, that's a completely different level than of the entire examination. And those radiologists like Stachi gave me this machine and gave me, well, their blessing. But they didn't tell me exactly what they gave me, what kind of device, what force it has, what impact force it has, and how much you need to know for that force to be a force and not just a disaster for someone.
It's incredible how much cone beam tomography can actually reveal, but still, someone analyzing such images needs to know what it represents. I guess it's not that simple to.
No, it's not simple, and that's exactly why it requires learning experience. I don't expect any colleague to know it on their own. Finding it out on my own was my torment, my journey, and the journey is that I know things, I knew things, I learned things, I read about different things in theory somewhere, and then suddenly I saw them on the screen. I was very proud of myself for seeing, but there were many different things I saw that I had no idea what they were. And initially, I didn't know what to call it or how to describe it, what words to use, because I don't just have Google. I have PubMed, Scopus, any database with articles, but you need to write some for the machine to provide you with something you need to describe. And those descriptions can be false because later I look at radiological images on Google, write CBCT, sclerosis, or any stone here. I wonder anatomically where I am in space with some words next to it, and I start searching. Sometimes you can find it quickly, and other times it takes 2-3 hours. And finally, there's some description of something or something, and then this article. It's behind a paywall. You have to pay money to find out. Okay, so I go back, look for another way, and finally. And sometimes at the beginning, the first protocol I wrote took me 2 weeks. Just because I can write a protocol in 8 minutes now doesn't mean I was able to do it in 8 minutes 7 years ago. The first protocols took me weeks to write to be sure that I had checked everything, because I am alone. There is no legion of radiologists or colleagues behind me. No one will save me. You want this? You take responsibility for that yourself. So if I take responsibility, I have to be sure that I saw everything on these images and so on. And how can I be sure? And to the extent that when a patient comes after 2, 3, or 4 years and we do a CBCT again, I don't do it like the Belgian radiologist colleagues who look for past records, copy, paste, and insert, and generally they already have an answer. No, I start from scratch. And I found that starting from scratch, I first discovered that it's not the same. The description is different. It's different because I've learned some other things. But the things I saw before, I don't see today because I've forgotten them, and it really becomes such And so different layers are created that these protocols complement each other over time. So it's also about working on oneself, not just revisiting or copy-pasting, but facing the topic again. After 3, 5, or 7 years, I think even after 20 years, I'll still be grappling with this subject. There's never a point where I can say I know everything. I'm bored, or nothing surprises me, because I'm constantly surprised by things we don't know. Different anatomical variants. Radiologists don't describe any anatomical variants. They don't have time for that, and it's completely out of anyone's field of view to delve into anatomical variants. Yet these variants explain why in an accident, one patient walks away unharmed and another dies. But how is that possible? How is that possible? Because somewhere there's an anatomical variant, something like an artery not protected by anything. And that's the end, whereas another person has what's needed and is fine. These are the moments when different diseases can take one path or another. Trauma can go one way or another. It all comes down to our small differences. Everyone is different. There's standard anatomy. And then there's an amount that's still unknown today. How many anatomical variants are there in a given region? No one has an answer to that question. First of all, no one is looking for an answer. And I say it's an interesting topic. I don't know where we'll end up, but honestly, I don't get bored. Every patient is interesting to me. Every patient is a challenge. Every patient comes in on 2 feet, leaves, and it's just what I can discover. Like a story, for example. I discovered the paracondylar process. The article was published precisely in the Nemesis journal. All articles in Nemesis are free for everyone. They can read them in 2 languages, French and English. Some articles have been translated by colleagues into Polish and even some into Ukrainian. There's no problem. We accept this approach as well. And 9 patients had, at the back of their heads, an additional structure that formed an extra joint with the first vertebra. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't have guessed we could have such a structure. I saw it for the first time in my life. It was as thick as my thumb. I don't know what it is. I don't even know what it's called. It took me a lot of time. Paracondylar process. Amazing. Later, it turned out that there are 5 articles in the world on neurosurgery, written by famous neurosurgeons. Each found one case and described it because it's so rare. And I have a series. We have 9 patients. And this is the largest series in the world. We must have 1 million patients. No, the largest series in the world is in Nemesis and has 9 patients. With 9 patients plus those other 5, we have 14. Then we can propose a classification and show other variants that no one has ever seen or described. That's what Nemesis is about. These are articles that could go to the world's top journals, but they belong to those journals, or they can stay here at the university and create a beautiful artisanal journal with all its nuances. In 2021, I didn't even know. It was my assistant who told me this while we were working. No, in 21, maybe 2024. He says, "Do you know that Nemesis is in the European Union documents for specialists, medicine, doctors, specialists?" I said, "What do you mean?" So these are the requirement documents for each specialty, what assistants should know, and so on, what to do to complete the specialization, pass final exams, etc., how to prepare for them. And for maxillofacial surgery, there's a list of books and modern scientific journals. And there's a European World Journal, this and that, and Belgium, and it's written Nemesis. I said, I didn't write to them. They found it themselves. For me, it's truly more than getting any impact factor. I'm not interested in impact factors. I won't go to Philadelphia, pay, or do anything for such things. That doesn't interest me. What interests me is that in our specialty, someone at the highest level said, please take this as an example. Please study from this journal for your final exam for specialization. That's it. It's the most beautiful thing it could be, our journals. So CBCT is a very long journey. A long journey on your own and searching for reference images, because it's only when you have a reference image that you can understand what you have yourself. And there must be an arrow on the reference image, because without it, we still don't know, can't understand, can't compare. And what we did in Nemesis as an article, I also provided a description. I read 2,200 articles about CBCT in dentistry. And I wanted to learn from these articles about the variants, any variants. How many reference images are available for free? For free? Not that you have to pay for the article. How many free images are there in the world? Across all of dentistry, oral and maxillofacial surgery, dental surgery, orthodontics, everything. 15. 15? What are 15 images? It's just, you could laugh until you cry, or just cry outright. And this is an article that is crucial to me because it shows a massive deficiency. A lack of learning opportunities, a lack of access for all the dentists in the world. There is no access to anything. So where are they supposed to learn? What can they compare? Will they see something? Where is that moment of truth? And from that moment, I decided that Nemesis, which stands for Negative Effects in Medical Science or Maxillofacial Surgery, and initially focuses on complications in our field. Writing about complications is a very hard level because none of us want to write about complications. Everyone did everything perfectly. Everyone is brilliant. And everything is great. Every conference is fantastic. I'm sorry to say, colleagues, but the reality is different. The reality of our work is different, and we have a lot of problems. We just don't write about them. And in this way, the young ones think everything is great. Well, it's not great. But then, this distorted reality becomes distorted. So Nemesis is about complications. That's the thing. It's also a hard level to write about complications. To admit to ourselves that there are such problems. But it's not to criticize anyone, because the journal Nemesis told me that experts want it, experts who defend doctors, because they say if there's a scientific article, there's a chance to defend the doctor and say there's no medical error. This has already happened. It has already happened. And here is the document. And here is the scientific article. And then doctors are defended. It should be understood in reverse. And how can you see all of this? It's not that I'm criticizing or blaming anyone with these documents. The more such documents there are, the more the environment is protected, not less. It was really a positive surprise for me what my work is and how it is seen from the perspective of these experts who deal with difficult situations, the ones nobody wants to occur. And I decided from the CBCT point of view that this journal shows gaps, and there is a gigantic gap in the middle of everything. There are no reference images, and there will be a clinical CBCT encyclopedia with reference images built within this journal. And these articles will be mixed. One time I write about the jaw, another time about the maxilla, sometimes about dysplasia, sometimes about a cyst, sometimes about cancer, sometimes about trauma, sometimes about implantology, sometimes one after another, step by step, because the gap is so huge and it's being filled with PDF documents. There's no limit to the number of pages. You can write articles of 50 pages. This is an article. It's for a books, not books of 50 pages, not one article, and the images are endless. An article on supernumerary teeth, premolars and molars, and only on the maxilla. Just in the upper jaw, right? It has 84 reference images. No journal in the world allows for that many. Because each color picture supposedly costs money. No, it doesn't cost anything. That's a different matter. So the idea is to give as much as possible, and the journal is free. You just need to enter and find an article that suits you, or not. Just today, there was a course with the doctor here, and she says, I read an article about Staffen's defect, and there, the professor shows that there isn't just one option. There's a panel of possibilities, and all of that is called Staffen's defect. Only then can you see the cross-section there. And my point is that every article should show a range, from simple to moderate to complex to even the most extraordinary cases, so readers really get the full spectrum. Among them, the patient who is just in the chair, sitting, or who, etc., will be there. And then these images make sense.
Professor, we have a dentist who has a great desire to independently perform CBCT imaging. What advice would you give him? Or what path should he take to effectively work in his practice? Medical dental practice freely work with CBCT analyzing such images also in a broader context of the safety of patients and himself?
So I would envision a kind of path through courses. First, you have to kind of get to know the programming. So you need 1 or 2 days of courses just on the software to navigate 3D imaging in a way that's transparent. The courses I conduct are, you could say, for people where we don't talk about the software at all anymore. There's no room to talk about it because it's really a very technical level for a technician. You could say also for a distributor. But I also think that maybe my approach is a bit too strict and that it's worth mentioning that my experience is technical. As a cardiology technician, I had to take this path on my own. There was no other way to explain how to position the patient, why it's done this way and not another. All those buttons on the console and on the device and then in the software, they're connected. How to use different contrasts, different icons, and various additional elements. What's important? What's less important? What you might use once in a lifetime or use continuously. This is also very important, very important. Now I realize, which I didn't think before, that the first approach is very important to get used to the program. Once we get accustomed to the program, and not just theoretically, like there's a black and white screen with nothing on it. There aren't first examples and clinical examples, which are very simple from my point of view, but ones without anything else, nothing frightening, nothing medical. Nobody went to a funeral there. No, much simpler cases. And now on these simple cases, I show, and there's interaction with a person or a group. The group shouldn't be too large either. If there are too many people, no one benefits from it. I won't benefit, you won't benefit either. The group should be smaller, ideal. The ideal system, of course, is master and apprentice. It's one-on-one, but I don't think that's the level. Basic to be one-on-one. I'll finish my thought in a moment. So this first level, it doesn't exist yet, but I'd like to create it with dental machine. So it does? That's the first step. Of course we had to choose because we can't teach all our colleagues about every machine that exists because that's endless. We can't cover this one, that one, the Chinese one, and so on. We have to decide on one. We have decided on one. I don't know whether I should say it or not. However, we decided. And with this machine, we will begin to implement both the software and simple clinical case-based learning. Next. The next one is, you could say, a course like today, a one-day course. There is already information on radiological protection. They absolutely have to be included. You need to understand that radiological protection isn't just for the patient, but also for us, because it's a machine with large energies. This is no longer an intraoral photo. We have to be careful. We must be cautious about what we do with our staff, with our health, and so on. There are many different guidelines on how to do things. And then there are, like today, indications, dental patient indications, the range, what possibilities we have. And here you could say it's passive. I show clinical cases through all of this. Out of these 7,000, I choose the most interesting, maybe some drastic or amazing ones. Not to surprise or shock anyone, but to show what range of possibilities there are. And that's today, you could say. And then if we want to go deeper, because we do want to go deeper, then we need to propose, and I propose this 5-day course. The entire course is translated into Polish. A few people in Poland have completed this course and have a certificate, but only from me, not from the Federal Control Agency. I have it because I need to have it. And this document doesn't look like the one I give to my colleagues, but the one I give them is exactly the same as what Belgian dentists get from the university, and then have to take to the office to receive the final official document. But I also issue this document in French, so it's something very original and interesting. These are people who had 30 hours. It was 30 hours and 5 days. We can do 30 hours and 6 days or 7 days, but that's all for you. It takes up, you could say, work time as well. I often do it, often on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays like this. But we need to cut out Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Belgian and Luxembourgish colleagues really like it. I don't know if Polish colleagues like it. That's another matter. But I must also say that I dedicate my weekends to teaching others. So it's not just me encroaching on someone's weekend. You're also encroaching on mine with my family. So it's a very specific approach. So it's 30 hours. So after 30 hours, 5 days after this exam, I believe you already speak my language. You are my students. You can count on me. I then give you my contact details. You can send your clinical cases. The toughest cases are always the ones not everyone takes advantage of. Maybe 10% of people used it, whether from Poland, Belgium, or Luxembourg. There comes a moment when you need to share information of this kind. I always respond via email and provide this information separately, even to those who took the course 10 years ago. I'm still here, still offering support. Nothing ends. We don't finish. On the 5th day, we don't end. Nothing ends in our collaboration. We just got to know each other. We're just beginning. This means you can feel more at ease, knowing it's not just a one-way relationship like with me. Thank you, goodbye. You don't call. No? If you want to call, you can call, and we'll talk. I can always help. There are cases where I don't know, but as a professor, even for patients, I say I don't know, but I will find out. That's my role as a professor. It's not that a professor answers every question. That's not true. But what he must do is find out, wait, understand, come back and say, all right, now I know. Now there are other questions, or I have solutions like this, and it might fit. Later comes the final stage, that final stage. It will start to exist next year at our Catholic University of Leuven. It will be the first in the world. I hope to implement it in Poland as well. I'll see which other university I can implement it with. It won't be 30 hours. It will be 300 hours. And obviously not 300 hours of lectures, because everyone would die at the start. That's not the point. It's 300 hours, but let's say 90 hours of lectures plus an internship. And here's the one-on-one internship. And what else is included in this package? To make it up to 300 hours, it's counted as 100 hours to write a scientific article under my guidance, under my patronage, for the journal Nemesis, to contribute to this pyramid built from cases, syndromes, teams, nightmares, incredible things. I just have a whole cabinet. You don't even need to bring your own case. You don't need to amaze me with anything. I will amaze you. And then I'll show you how to write a scientific article. It's written in such a way that you can later build a scientific career from it. That's something in the final package, and that's the Catholic University of Leuven. In the end, there's a theoretical and clinical exam, and you receive a diploma from the Catholic University of Leuven. That's a certificate. That's already a very, very serious level. And that will be an international university level. So those 30 hours are nice, but please understand that soon a real bulldozer is coming.
The medical community, especially dentists in Poland, is accustomed to constantly educating themselves because doctors encounter not only technological advancements but also continuous challenges. What the professor said about courses and training is about imparting very solid knowledge to be able to work freely with CBCT, also in a practical way. And one of the more interesting opinions from your course was that you show real practical cases you actually encounter in dental practice, that these are not just things to create a show or promote yourself, but truly to help practicing doctors in their daily interactions with patients. And that's truly amazing because it's fulfilling a special mission of sharing the vast knowledge you've gained. So all that's left is for us to invite you to Professor's courses. Professor, a different question, perhaps more down to earth, because you have immense experience. Immense is an understatement when it comes to tomography, but
This raises such a simple question. Are you able to estimate how many cone beam tomography scans you've analyzed in your professional life?
Not images. We're talking about examinations, right?
About examinations.
because every scan consists of about 10,000 images. So we're not talking about the images, but about the scans. For me, it's simple because I know exactly how many protocols I've written, how many examinations I've done. And I started this independent journey on November 13th, 2018, right? I remember exactly at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. I remember exactly, yes. And the second patient in a row was from some country, I don't know, ex-Soviets. He looked at me and said, because here on my badge it says, you are a professor and you're taking this scan, and where is your technician? I said, you know what, good question. I told him, there isn't one. There probably won't be one. And that's it. He was a bit surprised, and then he left. And to this day, there's still no technician. But it's okay. It's okay because I've learned a lot and can pass on this practical knowledge in this way because there is no filter. I had to do it myself. You reap what you sow. But you're asking about how many thousands of scans. I've done 7,000 examinations, so I have 7,000 protocols. I don't have a secretary, so I had to write them by hand. Normally it's 2 pages, so I've typed out 14,000 pages with these fingers. So that's roughly how it looks. But you can buy a system where you speak into a recorder and it writes it down. Now there's word dictation. There's a recorder, it writes. Very nice thing. I think I'll switch to this type of solution, which is also technically very simple. 7,000. So that's 1,000 patients per year.
A huge number. Professor, cone beam tomography gives us a deep insight into the patient's situation. It's probably a complete starting point for holistic treatment.
I think it's the starting point today for all digital dentistry. Exactly. When it all started, there was no digital dentistry. It didn't exist at all. There were no intraoral cameras either. That didn't exist. CBCT was before all of this. Different elements were made for it. CBCT is now the central element to which you can connect templates, navigation. You can connect all this digital dentistry. All right. But all this means that there will actually be more courses, not fewer. But at the beginning, we always start with CBCT and check if we haven't missed something, because later digital dentistry, navigation, all these things are combined with increasing understanding and learning of the software. Perhaps various things can be delegated. Some things in various CBCT software today are already automated. With artificial intelligence, you press a button and the implant is placed in the most suitable position, according to all the recommendations, in the best spot, and you no longer need to work with the mouse, operate, move in the 3D space. It turned out you can see from this side, but from another perspective. Something is outside the bone. Not this, not that. The prosthetist comes and says, what did you do? You need to change it. That's how it is. One click and it's done. So various things from digital dentistry, because it is entirely digital, they will delve really deep. Artificial intelligence will get involved there, and what? Fear. It's not the right word, but what? Oh dear, I'll have to take 100 more courses. I'll still have to learn 1,000 things. Click 1,000 times. Not at all. There, intelligence will go full force. There will be a button. There will be that. Want navigation? You have a button. Want a template? Have one button or two, and it's already sent to some 3D printer. There's a third, fourth button at the end, and it came out beautifully. And how the path was navigated between the first, second, third, and fourth button, no one knows. No one knows how much scientific, foundational, experimental work, and later other types of work, including everything discussed on your podcasts and so on, went into it. What an enormous experience it is. It involves so many people having to work on it, invent it, but no one feels it anymore because in the end, we want the final result as quickly as possible.
Yes, because we see a machine, we see the final result. And behind what the professor is saying, there is a team of people, enormous time, experience, conducted research. So the final effect is indeed what it is. Professor, where is 3D imaging technology heading? The future? Based on your experience and knowledge, do you see this future somewhere? What can we expect in 10 years?
Well, I think that maybe in 10 years, we can finally answer the question about bone quality. because today, no CBCT in the world, from a physics standpoint, not software, just physics, can answer the question about bone quality. The patient is only a reference for themselves. We might subjectively think that the bone is uniform here, or it isn't. Looking at a sinus lift on the cancellous bone of the same patient at the same time in the same test in this particular CBCT without comparing to another patient from yesterday, tomorrow, or a different machine. And all CBCT systems lack Hounsfield units. You can say they have them, you can make color maps, but that's not true. The truth is that there's no way today for the bone to look the same on one plane, in the middle and on the sides, while the measurement looks different. So you can't do this today. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, because it is possible. And of course, this is once again copying what was done on CT scanners in 2015. The next generation of CT scanners came about, spiral ones, which are called spectral. Spectral CT scanners work in a way where calculations are made with two generators, one, for example, 120 kVp, and the other 110 kVp, and they send out two beams with different strengths. And this is recalculated again. Thanks to this recalculation, spectral CT scans can place the periodic table over each pixel and inquire about the elements present. Every single one. This means that in the intentions of CT engineers, everyone takes something from radiology. Gynecologists take something, cardiologists take something, dentists take something. Everyone comes and steals something from radiologists. And in the morning, they sit there like big lords, take these old pieces of furniture, take that. We've got so many things here. You can take everything. And yet we are still so much further ahead. And now cardiologists can take over from histologists because this is basically a biopsy. What is being promoted is a biopsy. All of histology might collapse because it will be found in the spectral CT radiology. Images are shown, and these images are not for us, they are not allowed, because initially, these are brain metastases that weren't visible on previous scans, but now they are. These are neurological pathologies, cardiological pathologies, even ordinary gallstones. A standard CT scanner can't do that, but a spectral one can. How come? Well, that's how it is, because these are stones that haven't formed yet, but are forming. It's really, really out of this world. So later my question was, because I thought some time ago, well, if there are two generators in CT, why can't there be two in CBCT? And I started reading about it. And when I started reading, there were 80 purely scientific articles. These are journals on nuclear physics, med physics. These are articles by those scientists. There are almost only algorithms, only mathematical equations, and they say it can be done. So the scientists, we're back at the scientist level. I say from this level to the machine, we have 20 years. I discovered something that someone is already doing. Someone is already in this field, and it's starting to be. And so I started searching online. It turned out that there's Newton, the one from 2003. Newton is there again. It's called dual CBCT, dual energy, and it's Newton 7G. And in some latest version, it should be dual. I thought, wow, that's incredible. So I wanted to ask how much it costs. But the guy from Newton didn't come to the hospital because he didn't feel like it. So that's that. That's it in Belgium. Well, then I found out that in China, one company is starting to do this. But they're just beginning in China. They haven't even done it yet. And from building it, testing to make sure everything works as it should, and then bringing it to the world. Well, that's a very long road. I'll ask at Plan Mecca in Helsinki because I'm at the education summit. Please, the main boss himself, a picture with the boss, the president, blah, blah, blah. And so I ask about dual energy. We're just beginning this journey. For now, we're adjusting CBCT so the patient lies flat. Lying flat, and there will be this gantry, and the crown will be much larger, because in the future, in this larger empty crown, there will be a second generator. But that's a plan, as you say, for 10 years from now. And the next step will be a huge leap because we'll have quality and the possibility that suddenly biopsies will be radiological and dental histology won't be needed anymore as it will shift to radiological. Various cysts, we will finally be able to differentiate them as those who deal with radiology. We'll differentiate, we'll say what kind of cyst it is, what kind of change it is, what's the difference between this and that, whether endodontists should intervene and treat it, or if it should be treated surgically right away instead of struggling with endodontics. Today, it's impossible to determine, but in so many years, it will be possible thanks to dual energy. This is cool. This is cool. It opens up a new, vast perspective. We'll have to learn from the start, get the next certificate. And once again, maybe at first, these machines will be extremely expensive. There will be few of them, just a few clinics, maybe only one per country might appear. But over time, everything becomes democratized.
Will we have to learn anew to interpret?
Yes, interpret everything anew, because our whole approach has become so simplified that noticing a change in sharpness is enough. Today, that's enough because I can't say more. But with such a machine and the software that comes with it, it's truly the next big revolution in dental imaging.
We're moving further and further ahead. So in reality, science fiction is becoming reality.
Absolutely.
Professor, I'd like to return to the present times as we are in a situation where Chinese technology is really taking over every market. Should dentists be worried about, for instance, tomography devices coming from China? It's synonymous with such devices. Yes, they're Chinese, but we see changes in automotive technology, and many technologies, even in dentistry, come from there. A tomograph is a serious device. What do you think, subjectively, based on your observations? Subjectively, Professor.
From my subjective observations, I'd like to say that one shouldn't stop at the Chinese market found in every smaller city in Poland. But if you want to take a trip, go to Shanghai. It's enough to go to Shanghai and not take a taxi, but take the train. And you'll board this train called the Maglev. This train accelerates to 500 kilometers per hour, and you won't feel it because of its magnetic track, and within minutes, you'll be in the center of Shanghai. You'll get off the train and say, I'll take everything that's here. That was the first point for me. I still hadn't seen Shanghai. I hadn't seen the skyscrapers. It was enough for me because there's no such train in Europe. No one can afford such a train, such an amazing level of engineering. Besides, these are people who sent a machine to the moon where a leaf sprouted, and it all came back. So I believe they have good engineers, very good ones. So I thought long and hard about whom I could really connect with. There's no contact, no current possibility of intellectual connection with European or American companies. They are closed off, stable, confident in themselves, proud, and don't need anyone there. Sorry, Dmokowski, but they don't need anyone because they believe they've done everything, and that's where the world stops. And I thought for a long time about who might be interested that I also have ideas, that I'd also like to go into 3D waveguides and other ideas and so on. Adaptation. There can be a variety of things. Who would be interested in this? And actually, the company Bondant is interested in this. I didn't know anything about this company. I didn't know it was the biggest company in China. It's simply a giant. And suddenly I have a friend. It's like a big panda standing here behind me. And I respect the panda, and I respect pandas in general. Actually, I had to review an article like that. It was for scientific reports. It had about 6 points, maybe a quartile, very high ranking. I was invited to review a scientific article on the 3D cephalometry of a panda's head. I said, someone is promoting a strange topic to me here. But I said, why not? Why not? Someone has some anthropological, physical, or zoological topics, and so on. And I discovered another interesting aspect, another completely different side of all this. But it was a test, because pandas are just animals, really sacred animals. So it was some bigger test on a larger topic. It was a long time ago, but I don't remember that panda. But what I wanted to say is that I'm not afraid. This is a challenge. I'm not afraid. What the Chinese sold before is one thing, but it's an incredibly advanced engineering country, and they really do, if it can help us. Here in Europe, it can help us, and really, the price is amazing compared to others which are out of this world, while here, it's affordable. With this affordability, we also have a large number of AI elements, and they're not extras because other companies charge extra for everything. But this is extra, and this too. Everything is extra. I ask, what's included as standard? Well, there's nothing included as standard, sir. I have to buy all of this separately. So, what are you selling me? Plastic, the box. But here it's different. And I was delighted that there are so many things already included as standard. So I say great respect, really, for treating us so well. And now, if we're afraid of GDPR or that this machine will control us or whatever, it won't control us. They disconnect it from the internet, and that's it. And then you just use it. No one will control you with anything. Just like my machine in Belgium is disconnected from the internet. And when there was a hacker attack on our university clinic, everything stopped working. From the elevator to the incubator to cell cryopreservation to ventilators. It was an absolute disaster, from image archiving to the emergency room to intensive care. Everything you can imagine. Even for radiotherapy, there was nowhere to put the patient the next day. How to give him the dose of radiotherapy? Everything stopped working in one evening. My CBCT machine, like mine, is not connected to the internet. The next day, patients came. We carry on. There's no ransomware. There's absolutely nothing like that in this system because it's the most secure in the world. So if you want to protect them, these computers are completely disconnected from everything. Then it's 7 million%. So really, there's nothing to be afraid of. And as for the images, these images are really of very good quality. This makes me very happy too. And additionally, for example, Bondant, what they have a pulsed radiation beam. This is selected at the factory. Only Planmeca and Bondant have a pulsed beam in the world. That means Bondant is as good in radiological protection as Planmeca, because they chose to have a pulsed beam and not just continuously pulsed. It's not continuous. This is a fantastic factory choice from the perspective of radiological protection. I can congratulate. They didn't ask me about it. I found out about it much later. Once the machine is installed, it turns out that's how it works. From a radiological protection standpoint, it's great.
Yes, this technological development is incredible. And indeed, this Chinese Asian technology is both safe and rapidly developing. This expansion is enormous. One could say it's dramatically fast. Professor, may I ask, can cone beam tomography be described in one sentence somehow? Is there one golden thought? We ask our guests for such a golden thought, or one thought to summarize the topic. You are a specialist, a professional, and expert in the field of CBCT imaging. Is there a thought that has stayed with you over the years regarding tomography and imaging? Can it not just be summarized, but can you draw a conclusion from your experience?
I think we must continuously learn. We must continuously learn, not rest on our laurels, not think we know everything, because some case will always surprise us. And I think we should also think of CBCT in the sense that it may solve problems that have never been solved. Patients with various chronic, neuropathic, phantom pains, patients who are, one could say, rejected or misunderstood. You do a CBCT, and suddenly it turns out that where the patient had pain, he was right. He was always right. For 10 years, he said he was right, and he was right. It's about what a broken instrument shows. Something incredible in these images that suddenly opens our eyes to a different perspective. So you just have to look. I think it's more important to truly trust the patient, do a CBCT, and really change the person's life.
Yes, because indeed, on the other side of the tomography machine, there's a patient we fight for and treat. And it's a person whose life can often be saved this way. Professor, thank you very, very much for your time. A very interesting conversation that really broadens the perspective on cone beam tomography, especially as applied in dentistry. As the end of 2025 approaches, I wish you, Professor, all the best in the coming year. Healthy, peaceful holidays also to our viewers. This is what we wish with the Professor.
I also wish you all the best, Merry Christmas, and a very good upcoming New Year. And we'll see each other in the new year.
Absolutely, yes. With new ideas and new technologies, we look to the future. What will it really bring us in terms of technological development? We sincerely thank you and invite you to the next episodes of Dental Garage, Cyprian Siriga, Professor Raphael Olszewski. That's right. See you in the next episodes. See you soon. Bye. Thank you very much, Professor.